it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness hast appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of importance for us in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands, and of those whose interest thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Thank you, Mrs. Bill. Members, the House is now in session. Confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the 20th of May have been circulated. Are there any amendments or adjustments to be made? There are none. The minutes will be confirmed as printed. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker? There are none. Messages from the Senate? There are none. Papers and other communications to the House? We have 3 this morning. The first is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Deputy Premier, would you like to present your paper?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to colleagues and the listening public. I have the honor to attach and submit for the consideration of the Honorable House of Assembly the Northeast Hamilton Local Plan 2022 and the Tribunal Report Draft Northeast Hamilton Local Plan 2022. The plan and the accompanying tribunal report can be found online at planning.gov/index.php on the planning website. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And thank you, Deputy. The next this morning is in the name of the Minister of Transport. Minister of Transport.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Air Navigation's Fees for Certificates and Services Regulations 2022 made by Her Excellency the Governor in exercise of the powers conferred by Article 4.3 of the Air Navigation's Overseas Territories Order 2013, United Kingdom, as applied to Bermuda.
Thank you, Minister. That brings us to the close for the papers and communications for today. Petitions. There are none. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. We have 5 statements this morning. The first is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Deputy Premier, would you like to put your statement this morning?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yep.
Good morning once again to everyone.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, today I lay for consideration and approval the final Northeast Hamilton Local Plan 2022. The Northeast Hamilton Local Plan 2022 has been prepared by the Department of Planning to guide development within the northeastern portion of the city of Hamilton. The plan is accompanied by a tribunal report detailing the consultation process, representations received, and the findings and recommendations of the tribunal. Once approved, notice of the plan will be published in the official gazette and it will become operative. Mr. Speaker, I invite members of this Honorable House and the public to access both the plan and the accompanying tribunal report online at planning.gov.bm/index.pHP/NEH 2022. Mr. Speaker, Northeast Hamilton is an area of unparalleled community spirit. However, it is also an area which has suffered due to the lack of investment in its infrastructure and environmental conditions. The area has been subject to and continues to experience challenging social economic conditions which have contributed to negative perceptions of the area. These negative perceptions have caused a general reluctance within the private sector to invest in development projects within the area. Mr. Speaker, the right development in the right location can spur economic activity, and therefore it is essential that Northeast Hamilton is equipped with the appropriate planning policy framework which can assist in facilitating investment. Mr. Speaker, the Northeast Hamilton area was intentionally excluded from the City of Hamilton Plan 2015 as it was considered that the area has a, I quote, distinct urban fabric worthy of its own local plan. The department has explored a number of options for the preparation of a local plan for this area, attempting to ensure that it is sensitive to the needs and aspirations of the people who live and work in the area. Mr. Speaker, the presentation of the plan today represents the culmination of that work. Mr. Speaker, the plan establishes a change of approach in the traditional interpretation and application of planning policy in Bermuda, in that the entire ethos of the plan is built around the concept of a document which is applied in its entirety. Such an approach allows for decisions to be taken through balancing all the relevant factors and not mandating that a planning application must be refused because it fails to meet a single policy. Similarly, it also means that an application does not have to be approved just because it meets preconceived requirements. Mr. Speaker, this plan allows for case-by-case assessments based upon the nature of the development proposals and the circumstances of individual sites, and encourages developers and architects to put forward innovative designs which respond to the established characteristics of the area. Mr. Speaker, within the context of ever-changing social, environmental, and economic dynamics, I believe that it is imperative to have a planning system which has the ability to quickly pivot and respond constructively to emerging opportunities. I believe that the plan can assist in successfully achieving this whilst remaining true to sound planning principles. Mr. Speaker, the overarching vision of this plan is, I quote, to realize Northeast Hamilton's sustainable economic potential in a manner which is cognizant of the established environment, sense of community, and cultural importance of the neighborhood, end quote. Mr. Speaker, in order to realize this vision, the plan sets a flexible policy framework which affords greater decision-making discretion to the Development Applications Board. This framework does not set any absolute parameters in terms of acceptable uses, designs, or building heights in order to allow each development proposal to be considered on its individual merits. It does, however, contain all of the conventional planning considerations, ensuring that appropriate decisions can be taken within a robust policy framework. Mr. Speaker, the Department undertook an extensive consultation exercise within internal and external stakeholders in preparation of the plan prior to the formal public consultation phase. Feedback received as part of the initial phase of the consultation process was considered before the plan was formally published for public consultation. Mr. Speaker, a draft version of the plan was released on July 5th, 2021, marked by an on-site press conference attended by technical staff from the department and myself. Throughout the month of July 2021, the department raised the profile of the plan by distributing information, leaflets, emailing local businesses, and holding stakeholder meetings. Alongside technical staff from the department, I also appeared on a live radio show to publicize the release of the plan and to participate in a question and answer session. Mr. Speaker, the formal public consultation phase commenced on the 2nd of August 2021, ending on the 8th of October 2021. During this period, any interested parties were invited to submit objections or representations on the content of the plan. Details of this public consultation phase were published in the official gazette and on the department's website. In addition, the plan was highlighted by various local media outlets at key stages during the plan-making process. The department also issued a press release before the closure of the consultation period in an effort to obtain as much feedback as possible. Mr. Speaker, due to the public health guidance, which was in place during the public consultation phase, it was determined that in-person consultation exercises would not be appropriate. Accordingly, the department held a live virtual town hall on September 2nd, 2021. As part of this exercise, technical officers from the department conducted a presentation, which was followed by a question and answer session. The broadcast was shown live on government's YouTube and Facebook channels, as well as CITV. This also provided the opportunity for what transpired to be a valuable question and answer session. Mr. Speaker, a total of 3 submissions were received as part of the formal public consultation phase. One of these submissions was confirmed to be an objection upon receipt. The department subsequently had discussions with each of the parties who made formal submissions, and following those discussions, it was confirmed that all of the cases received were to be treated as, I quote, representations and not objections. This is a crucial difference, as it meant that there were no formal requests to change the content of the document. I think that's very important to note, Mr. Speaker. That's been the success of this very meticulous process undertaken by the department. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the Development and Planning Act 1974, I appointed a tribunal on the 20th of January 2022 to process the submissions received. The tribunal members consisted of Mr. John Payne, the chair, Ms. Jennifer Haworth, and Ms. Vanessa Turner. I wish to thank those tribunal members for their participation and work as well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as noted within the tribunal report, upon consideration of the consultation process followed by the department and the resolutions reached, it was determined that no formal hearings were required. The tribunal concurred that the department's recommendations on each of the 3 cases and did not recommend any changes to the plan, with the exception of minor changes recommended by the department. Having received the final version of the tribunal report for my review, in April 2022, I confirmed my full agreement with the tribunal findings and recommendations. Mr. Speaker, I believe that it is particularly pertinent to point out that the tribunal concluded that the lack of objections is reflective of the flexible nature of the document, as well as I quote, vigorous consultation process used, end quote, by the department. I wholeheartedly agree that with these conclusions and believe that the department has produced a document which could be the cornerstone of a transformational approach towards planning within Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, the government announced as part of its election platform a desire to transform the city of Hamilton into a livable city and voiced its support for major public and private sector building projects, including residential development in the northeast of Hamilton. Through its flexible approach and consistent support for residential development within the area, this plan will play a critical role in achieving these ambitions. Mr. Speaker, the 2021 speech from the throne detailed a commitment to ensuring that Northeast Hamilton plan would come before the legislature during this session. The presentation of the plan today delivers this commitment to the people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity at this time to thank the members of the tribunal for their hard work and contributions to the Northeast Hamilton Local Plan 2022. In addition, I would like to recognize the efforts of Ms. Victoria Pereira, Director of the Department of Planning, and her team, notably Mr. Kenneth Campbell and Mr. Paul McDonald. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is by the Minister of Transport. Minister, would you like to present your statement at this time?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this year, during the 2022-23 budget debate, I advised this honorable House that one of the initiatives under the Ministry of Transport is to focus on modernizing the local public service vehicle industry. Mr. Speaker, this initiative aims to update the regulatory framework for public service vehicles. The project is a deliverable of the 2019 Transportation Green Paper and will include the modernization and harmonization of public service vehicles through a phased approach over 5 years. Mr. Speaker, the Green Paper identified that there are not enough public service vehicles after 5 p.m., on Saturdays, on Sundays, and public holidays to service visitors and residents alike, particularly at the airport, dockyard, St. George's, and Front Street. Mr. Speaker, the overarching aim is to, 1, ensure a level playing field for the industry to better deal with the continuing and inevitable changes and meet customer needs better. 2, improve the public service vehicle sector to ensure improved service, customer and driver safety, and consumer protections. 3, regulate the provision of a robust public service vehicles licensing system, which ensures that the public travel safely, receive good customer service, drivers and operators are not overly burdened by unnecessary conditions, and 4, expand capacity to accommodate future needs of residents and visitors. Mr. Speaker, Phase 1, which includes consultation and feedback of key industry stakeholders, including minibuses, dispatchers, limos, and taxis, is near completion. The ministry is currently reviewing the stakeholder responses. This phase also includes a review of current public service vehicle legislation, policies, and procedures to ensure they are relevant, consistent, and effective, and they help protect stakeholders and users alike. Considerations are given to ensuring the sector is up to date with the latest technology and consistent with the industry's best practices. Mr. Speaker, we are also working towards strengthening the transportation support to meet the projected increased service demands based on a forecast that predicts an increase in air, sea, and cruise passenger arrival numbers between 2024 and 2026. Mr. Speaker, in closing, Phase 2 will focus on opportunities and options that can be made available to improve the quality of life for owners and operators of public service vehicles, and generating revenue for the government, and making it easier to enter the public service vehicle services industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of National Security. Minister, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you and
Morning.
good morning to colleagues. Mr. Speaker, you will recall from the 2021 speech from the throne that data is the new oil, and Bermuda must ensure that our cybersecurity defenses are adequate to defend our island from dangerous online actors. We committed to introduce the Cybersecurity Act, which will establish minimum standards for cybersecurity for critical assets such as energy supply, telecommunications, water infrastructure, and government data. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform this Honorable House that work is underway on the legislation which I intend to table this calendar year. Mr. Speaker, the legislation is only a part of our cybersecurity strategy. Global trends and reports indicate that the number and severity of cyber incidents affecting individuals and organizations across nations will grow. This, coupled with the rapidly evolving cyber threat landscape, means that Bermuda needs to identify and classify cyber threats, enhance management of cyber threats, and provides support to organizations across all sectors on how to manage these threats, particularly our critical national infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, this week, a cybersecurity workshop is being provided to both government and private sector stakeholders with responsibility for critical national infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, a 5-day workshop, which ends today, is being presented by 2 experts from the International Telecommunications Union, Mr. Marwan Rechad and Mr. Pablo Palacio. The ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, and we are very fortunate to have these 2 subject experts on island to present the workshop. The workshop will assist us in building national cyber resilience and the protection of critical information infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the workshop is also focusing on the functions and role of a national cybersecurity incident response team, or CSIRT, to improve our ability to protect, detect, and respond to cyber threats. This includes providing technical training for government cyber incident responders and the setting up of a threat sharing platform, security monitoring systems, an incident management system, and a digital forensics system. Mr. Speaker, the ITU emphasized that at the national level, cybersecurity is a shared responsibility which requires coordinated action for prevention, preparation, response, and incident recovery on the part of government authorities, the private sector, and civil society. Mr. Speaker, this workshop is part of our commitment to meet that responsibility, including partnering with the private sector in protecting our critical national infrastructure from the rapidly evolving cyber threat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is also from the Minister of National Security. Minister, you'd like to continue with your second statement?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, as I get started, I sent you a WhatsApp. Can you take a look at it?
All right, continue.
So can I, okay. Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to advise this Honorable House that we have just entered hurricane season, which runs from June 1st until November 30th. Mr. Speaker, based on records of the last 30 years, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Climate Prediction Center issues an annual hurricane activity prediction. They have predicted that this year will be above average. Mr. Speaker, the forecast for this year is 14 to 21 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 6 major hurricanes, which is a category 3 and above. Mr. Speaker, the 2021 season saw no hurricanes directly hit Bermuda, but 2 hurricanes came close. Hurricane Larry missed Bermuda by 140 miles to our east as a Category 1 hurricane. Hurricane Sam missed Bermuda by 200 miles also to our east as a major Category 4 hurricane. Mr. Speaker, with this said, the early predictions for 2022 are that the season will be even more active, with storms being more frequent and stronger. We have already seen the first hurricane of the year, Hurricane Agatha, hit Mexico on the Pacific coast and crossed over into the Gulf of Mexico, where it is gaining strength. Mr. Speaker, each year, the government begins its preparations for hurricane season in advance of the start of the season. In preparation for the 2022 season, the Emergency Broadcast Facility, 100.1 FM, has been checked and is in a good state of readiness. It's located on the new government tower at Prospect and is broadcasted every day at reduced power. Power will be increased if needed. The public is encouraged to familiarize themselves with the station by tuning in from time to time. Mr. Speaker, June is Hurricane Preparedness Month, where all residents are urged to prepare themselves for the hurricane season. During this month, the Disaster Risk Reduction and Mitigation Team, which is short for DERM, will coordinate a number of activities, familiarize staff, and train new staff with the Emergency Measures Organization Operations Center, located at the Hamilton Fire Station. The month will also be used to test the equipment and conduct staff training for the Emergency Broadcast Facility. The EBF will test its connections with the Bermuda Weather Service and the government Facebook Live link. Mr. Speaker, residents are urged to take time out and think about their preparedness as a family in line with the 5 themes of hurricane preparedness, which are Monday, personal safety; Tuesday, family safety; Wednesday, financial security; Thursday, strengthen your home; Friday, community and neighbors. Mr. Speaker, next week, the Emergency Measures Organization Executive will meet to assess the government's hurricane readiness, and I urge all residents to also assess their readiness. Mr. Speaker, we all understand that it only takes one hurricane to make 2022 an active season for Bermuda, and I urge all residents to be prepared. Now is the time to inspect, prepare, and repair your house for hurricane season. Now is the time to look at your family plans and update them with any changes to phone numbers and other important information. Now is the time to take stock of all medical prescriptions that your family and pets require and ensure you have at least 2 weeks' supply on hand. Now is the time to check your hurricane kit to make sure you have working flashlights, a portable radio with spare batteries, and a stock of non-perishable food to last your family for 7 days. Now is the time to ensure your house insurance policy is up to date. Now is the time to visit your vulnerable neighbors and ask them if they need any help with their preparations, keeping COVID-19 safety precautions in mind. Mr. Speaker, several years ago, the Department of Communications released their smartphone application called Freefall. This app, will alert all users to news and alerts posted by the Bermuda government and includes any alerts posted by the Emergency Measures Organization that the public needs to be urgently aware of. I urge all of this Honorable House and all of Bermuda's residents to download and install this app, which is free, to ensure that you receive all emergency alerts. Mr. Speaker, each year during hurricane season, Bermuda has an opportunity to demonstrate its strength and resilience. I am confident that with proper preparation, this year will be no different, and we will safely weather any storms that may test our shores. The EMO, the GARM team, and the Ministry of National Security will continue its work to ensure that we are well prepared.
Members, I'm going to ask your indulgence. The minister, when he started this statement, had indicated he had sent notification to me, and I'm going to seek your indulgence because the matter that he wants to address now is has some degree of urgency because it will affect us. So based on that, I'm seeking your indulgence to allow him to add an additional paragraph as a comment to this statement. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda Weather Service, in conjunction with the National Hurricane Center, has issued a tropical update bulletin for potential tropical cyclone 1, which is forecast to pass at just over 200 nautical miles from Bermuda on Monday morning with sustained winds of 35 knots. All residents should monitor the Bermuda Weather Service website during hurricane season so they are informed of the latest developments of tropical cyclones in our region. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, thank you for the indulgence. The next statement this morning is that from the Minister of Labor, Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister, would you like to present your statement at this time?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to present to this Honorable House Bermuda's National Youth Employment Strategy. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I hosted a press conference at the Bermuda College alongside the Director of Workforce Development and the Executive Director for the BEDC to announce the strategy. These two represent some of the key stakeholders that will be essential in executing this strategy. Today I will elaborate in more detail to this House the goals of the Youth Employment Strategy. Mr. Speaker, it is often said that our young people are our most precious resource. They are the future of our country. This government has committed and will bring about changes for the benefit of our youth. As highlighted in the 2021 speech from the Vern and the Economic Recovery Plan, the government made a commitment to meet the identified needs of young persons between the ages of 18 and 26. Therefore, I am pleased to announce that the Ministry of Economy and Labor, in collaboration with several other government departments and youth-led organizations, are launching the National Youth Employment Strategy. The Youth Employment Strategy aims to address unemployment by facilitating greater opportunities and educational pathways for all young Bermudians between 18 to 26 years old. The comprehensive strategy will ensure that our young people are prepared for the present and future world of work. Mr. Speaker, the Youth Employment Strategy aims to synergize all stakeholders and leverage existing mechanisms in place to prepare our young people for career and financial success. And in doing so, we will achieve the following 9 goals. Mr. Speaker, goal number 1 strives to ensure that young Bermudians are suitably qualified and positioned to take advantage of job opportunities within the local labor market. The first goal is to increase local training opportunities and promote pathways to securing employment. Achieving this goal includes the implementation of 2 strategic initiatives. This first strategy includes analyzing labor market data to ensure training opportunities align with current and future demands. The second includes partnering with internal and external organizations to validate training programs and fill the gaps in high-demand occupations. Goal number 2 aims to increase access to young people transitioning into the workplace. The second goal will expand career support services from high school to early employment. Achieving this involves ensuring the workplace readiness training, and career guidance is provided for high school to early employment. Bill number 3 will enrich the pool of local talent. Their goal is to support, promote, and encourage Bermudans to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, otherwise known as STEAM. These type of jobs meet the rapidly changing demands of our local market. The demand for professionals within interest and academic backgrounds in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics is growing in Bermuda as more creative and tech-based job opportunities become available across various industries. To ensure the local labor force remains competitive, the government encourages young people interested in STEAM to explore the opportunities available locally. To achieve this, we will support and expand the current number of training opportunities and ensure funding is made available for STEAM-related educational pursuits. Bill number 4 will ensure that a greater number of young people receive relevant work experience and better prepare them for gainful employment. The fourth goal is to expand apprenticeships and internship opportunities. The strategy is to work with employers and look within the public service to expand apprenticeship and internship opportunities. We will also launch a campaign to educate employers and human resource professionals on the benefits of training schemes and apprenticeships. Goal number 5 aims to increase public access to the relevant labor market information and career opportunities. Accomplishing this goal focuses on sharing relevant labor market information in a clear, easy to understand format using various communication methods that reach a broad section of the public. Mr. Speaker, goal number 6 is to encourage and foster the development of future business owners in our community, especially amongst our young people. The 6th goal is to support and promote youth entrepreneurship. Our strategy includes the continued support of organizations that provide services for young entrepreneurs, expanding programs to promote entrepreneurship among young Bermudians, and giving business mentorship opportunities for young entrepreneurs. Bill number 7 aims to improve pathways to employment and promote support services for vulnerable youth. Many vulnerable young people with no employment or educational pursuits can benefit from assistance to overcome barriers to employment and access to the labor market. These youth often have vulnerable backgrounds and face multiple obstacles to successfully entering the workplace. Improving the support offer will increase their level of preparedness and benefit the greater community. We will provide specialized services for young persons requiring additional support to achieve this. Goal number 8 will encourage young employees to realize their social and economic potential. The 8th goal is to revise policies to improve social protections for young people. It will involve reviewing our labor legislation to ensure our youth has specific protections in the workplace, which include racial and gender disparity, abuse of volunteer work, a statutory minimum wage, and offering financial support to those in need. Lastly, goal number 9, the 9th and final goal is to facilitate the repatriation of young Bermudians by encouraging them to return home to work, live, and participate in the local economy. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Workforce Development will spearhead the implementation of the National Youth Employment Strategy. During the pre-consultation process, our internal and external stakeholders indicated that they are excited and willing to support the development and launch of the Youth Employment Strategy. Some of the work to be completed by the department included modifications to the Bermuda Job Board, which allows the youth to register for career opportunities, and executing the career mapping process, which is anticipated to be labor intensive. Mr. Speaker, in closing, this government remains committed to providing opportunities for young Bermudians so that they may develop the ability and desire to guide and lead our country's path into the future. I urge everyone to review Bermuda's Youth Employment Strategy, available online at the Ministry of Economy and Labor on gov.bm. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. That brings us to a close of the statements for this morning. We'll now move on to the next item on the order paper, which is reports of committees. There are none. The next item is question period, and there are no written questions this morning. The questions today are from the statements that were given out this morning. Minister of Transport, we have indication that the opposition would like to put a question to you regarding your statement this morning, and we will take that question now. It's 10:41 to start our 60 minutes. Opposition, put your question to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, and good morning, Minister. I have a few questions. I'd like to begin with a reference that was made in the statement about there not being enough public service vehicles after 5 p.m., Sundays, public holidays, etc. My question is it that there aren't enough public service vehicles, or is it that there aren't enough drivers for those public service vehicles?
Minister?
It is that there are not enough public service vehicles in operation at that time, or that they are not getting to those customers in a timely manner, thus making them wait outside of the industry standard or international best practices of 15 minutes.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. So my question, and this is targeted at jobs and employment, I'm just wondering if the minister might be able to give us some information about whether the modernization of the public service vehicles will include how drivers, new employment opportunities may be available to attract individuals to the profession.
Minister?
Keep in mind that the public service vehicle industry's primary goal is to provide safe and reliable transportation for residents and visitors alike. As I said in my statement, the ministry is anticipating an increase in air arrivals, an increase in sea arrivals, and an increase in cruise arrivals. With that increased number would automatically suggest that we need to increase our resources that are available or public service fleet size in order to meet the pending demand. If there is an increase in demand and an increase in need to supply services, thus would equal an increase in employment opportunities. And therefore, the ministry is looking to put or add opportunities and options, or add options to the modernization concept that provides additional employment opportunities, additional revenue generating opportunities for those members and those industry stakeholders.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, MP Chairman.
Yes, MP, put your supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for your helpful statement. One of the areas you've identified is the airport picking up by taxis in particular. Is there some way to improve the way that airport dispatch communicates with the taxis? For example, on the late night arriving flights, the Miami flight, is there not some way where they could inform people by social media or by message or text about the flight delay time on arrival and the number of passengers, so the drivers are aware what time they would need to be at the airport and how many people are likely to be coming? Because that flight often has a lot of people standing outside without any cabs coming. Thank you, Minister.
Minister?
I'm glad that the opposition raised that. The simple answer is yes. There is always room for improvement. But being as though I am somebody who firsthand saw that there was a 90-minute wait for public service vehicles after a delayed Miami flight, that is something that we find unacceptable. The ministry is actively and aggressively working with, or trying our best within the confines of the project agreement, to work with Skyport in order to provide not just a better transportation system or logistics, but to provide better accommodations and a better working environment for those public service vehicle operators that are down there for an extended period of time.
Further
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary, yes, put your seconds up.
Thank you, Minister. I too am aware, as I was on your plane, the same plane, although I was in the back, Minister. Yes, I mean, it would seem that that is an easy fix just by greater communication between the drivers and the airport dispatch. Thank you, Minister.
Okay, MP Jackson, do you have a second question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker.
What's your second question?
Thank you. Again, I'm just focusing on driver safety in the statement. And I'm just wondering, within the modernization of the public service vehicles, whether there are investigations or discussions going on around the use of cameras or emergency alerts with the police and things like that for the late night after hour drivers and in that situation.
Understood?
I think it is safe for me to share, and something that most of the public don't know is that the public service vehicle operators do have a panic button, which is required by law to have in the event of needing additional support and assistance. And we are providing options that will allow for operators, if they choose, to be able to take digital payments, thus not making them, or hopefully not making them a target for robberies.
MP Jackson, do you have a supplementary for this?
I do not have a supplementary, but I have a third question.
Third question, continue with your third question.
Thank you. And this is around focusing on the key industry stakeholders. I see that much discussion has taken place with the actual public service vehicle industry, but I'm wondering what consultation has actually been done with the customer experience side, such as the hotel associations, St. George and Hamilton, chambers or corporations, Redco and Dockyard, the airport, etc.
Understood?
That consultation happened years ago, and was part of and contributed most of the information provided in the 2019 Green Paper, which was mentioned in the beginning of my statement. So once again, the consultation has been had with those entities that you've spoken about prior to us having the most recent consultation with the stakeholders.
Supplementary?
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've completed my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister. The next statement that has questions this morning is the statement from the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister, you have a question from the opposition. Opposition Whip, would you like to put your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I actually have a question for the Honorable Minister Michael Weeks on cybersecurity.
Yep, I'm sorry, I skipped over that. I'm sorry. It is actually Minister Weeks. My apology.
Thank you.
Mr. Hammond is not yours, Minister Weeks. My apology.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Honorable Minister, and good morning to the listening public. In respect to the matter in the Honorable Minister's statement where he spoke about cyber incident responders, which was on page 2 of 3, about halfway down ahead of the bullet points. Would the Honorable Minister be able to clarify what are the cyber incident responders?
Right, the cyber incident responders, hopefully we'll be putting a board together of public and private subject matter experts to monitor and identify what potential cybersecurity threats could be.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, Mr. Speaker. To date, would the Honorable Minister please clarify if there have been any breaches of government cybersecurity to date?
To date, as far as my knowledge, MP, no.
Second question, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, for the second question.
Would the Honourable Minister be able to clarify in his statements? This would be on the first page. He raised the matter that he intends to table legislation in this calendar year to introduce a Cybersecurity Act. Would the Honourable Minister be able to clarify what work is left outstanding before he'll be able to bring that legislation to this Honourable House?
Minister?
Now, Mr. Smith, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, MP. There's no real work outstanding. Drafted instructions have been given to chambers, and hopefully in our next session, I will be able to bring it to the House.
That's all my questions, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Honourable Minister.
And thank you.
MP, Officer Smith, did you still want to do your questions for Minister Hayward?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Minister Hayward, the opposition whip does have a question they'd like to put to you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to the Honourable Minister. With respect to the matter the Honourable Minister raised in his statement of today on page 2, he spoke about the identified needs of young persons between the ages of 18 and 26. Would the Honourable Minister be able to clarify what are the needs that were identified in this process?
Minister?
The picture as it pertains to youth unemployment rate, it was clear that there are a number of barriers in place that actually prevent our young people from gaining gainful employment. And so what we looked at is we identified the barriers in place, and then we looked at strategies that will alleviate some of those barriers. Some of those barriers are external to the individual, and some of those barriers are skill set challenges that individuals have. And so when we talk about the support that we're providing, the goals are structured around providing support to alleviate those barriers. And so when we talk about career advisement, we talk about providing employment services, we talk about training and development, we talk about awareness of the labor market and ensuring that persons actually have a full understanding of the occupations within our economy and the skill sets that are required for those occupations. We talk about in-house barriers that exist because of lack of opportunity and experience, and that's why we start to talk about the strategies of internships and apprenticeships. And then we talk about how we can better engage with employers so that we can create an environment where the government and employers are working on the same page to progress our young people through their career pathway continuum.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Given the age of 18 to 26, what role has the Bermuda College played in identifying these needs or providing solutions?
Minister?
So the age of 18 to 26 was selected because our school system ends at the age of 18, our high school system. Workforce development responsibility begins at the age of 18, and so anything under 18 will fall under the education. But you asked a specific question in terms of Bermuda College. It has been recognized that the community college is the bridge between jobs that are in demand within our society and transitioning our young people on those particular educational continuums or pathways. And so the PACE department is extremely important because the PACE department is the flexible arm of the Bermuda College, which is able to adapt itself to the demands of the change in labor market. And so Bermuda College has two critical functions. Number one is to better position our young people to take advantage of jobs that exist, but then also provide the first step to our continuum of future education that will assist our young persons.
Supplementary?
No supplementary second question, though, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
what's the second question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With respect to the matter the Honorable Minister raised in Goal 9, wherein he said the ninth and final goal is to facilitate the repatriation of young Bermudians. Would he be able to clarify or explain how increasing the number of young Bermudians is going to reduce the current unemployment rate?
So the strategy is a youth employment strategy. And so it's not just to tackle unemployment, but it's also to reduce barriers to our young people becoming gainfully employed. And so we recognize that young persons are determining that they are emigrating Bermuda because there's a lack of opportunity, maybe the cost of living is an issue, and maybe there's a limited level of resources on the island to support those individuals. And so understanding that the government needs to put strategies in place that makes Bermuda a more attractive place so that we can retain our local talent. And so it's not just addressing unemployment, but some persons leave because of unemployment. But we want to see employment of our educated youth, and we want to ensure that our youth have opportunities in their own island.
Supplementary?
Supplemental to that, Mr. Speaker?
MP Kenner, you can put supplementary?
Yes, thank you. The minister was talking about barriers, and I believe that some of the goals that have been outlined also are part of resolving some of those barriers. I'm just curious, in his findings, was there any one particular thing that stood out that was a barrier beyond above some of the other challenges? Was there anything particular that he was surprised at, or it stood out as one main issue for our youth?
Understood.
When we talk about our youth, it is actually a broad group of individuals with different skill sets, different social economic backgrounds. And so there was not one major thing that stood out. But what was clear is that as it pertains to one of the biggest hurdles is the hurdle of experience. Even the entry-level jobs within our economy require a level of experience when we look at the majority of jobs advertised. Notwithstanding that our young people may have the ability, or they may have the education, or the ability to do the job, the experience of getting in the door creates a barrier for our young persons. What we've seen through the graduate training program that we actually ran through the Department of Workforce Development is, notwithstanding those young people didn't have the experience, they had the education and they had the willingness. And once we placed those individuals into the world of work, what we saw is after the internship, a high proportion of those individuals were actually retained because they had an opportunity to show the value that they can bring to the workplace. And so if it's one thing, it's the lack of entry-level opportunity where persons can actually show and prove their worth and their value.
Minister, Officer Tripp, do you have a supplementary or Mr. Cannoneer, MP Cannoneer?
Thank you. No.
Supplementary?
No supplementary from me. Third question, please, Mr. Speaker.
Third question, yes.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister has pointed out the 9 goals of the National Youth Employment Strategy. Would he be able to speak to how this plan differs from the existing work and goals of the Department of Workforce Development?
So the Youth Employment Strategy is a strategy that focuses primarily on our young people between the ages of 18 to 26. You would note that earlier we released a National Reemployment Strategy, which is much broader than that particular demographic group. We recognize that that demographic group is the demographic group that is the most displaced from our workforce. For our young people, specific geared strategies for them are required, and specialized employment services and support services. Some of the work that the Department of Workforce Development currently does will fall in alignment with this strategy. But then it also focuses them to look at other areas where there are gaps as it pertains to the access to labor market information, the proper career guidance, forming greater levels of partnerships with employers. Apprenticeships have always been a feature of our economy, but they need to be expanded and enhanced. And so some of the work within the set out in the plan will be in alignment with what the Department of Workforce Development is currently doing, and where there are gaps, the Department of Workforce Development will put strategies in place. And other organizations, because it's not just the Department of Workforce Development that will be carrying out this particular plan, will put their strategies in place so that we can close those gaps.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. When does the Honorable Minister anticipate giving updates to this Honorable House?
Minister?
I've had a habit of, when we were rolling out the National Reemployment Strategy, of providing updates on a timely basis, and I will endeavor to do the same as pertains to the initiatives that are focused within the Youth Employment Strategy. Certainly, we will give updates based off of the activity that's actually taking place. And so I can't commit to a quarterly time frame, but I can commit to providing updates as we move through the execution of and implementation of the strategy, Mr. Speaker.
Further supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. What does the Honorable Minister see as a success metric?
The success metric to me would be a system in place that focuses on our young people.
Mr. Speaker, I just think one of the honorable members has opened the mic.
I'm sorry, fellas, let me figure out which number it is right now. Ms. Reed? Ms. Simmons Reed? If you can just mute yourself again. Thank you.
The output will be a system in place that focuses on our young people in a sustainable manner. This problem is not going to be eradicated in 1 year, 2 years, and every generation of young persons coming behind the current generation will have their challenges. But we should always have as a feature of our system strategies and initiatives that actually focus on that particular demographic group so that we don't fall back into this area where we have over 30% unemployment for that particular group.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, and that brings us to a close to the question period for this morning. Thank you, members. Thank you, ministers, for your participation. We'll now move on. The next item on the order for today would be the congratulatory and obituary.
Mr. Speaker.
Would any member like to make a contribution?
Mr. Speaker.
Premier?
Good morning to you, Mr. Speaker. How are you today?
Give you 3 minutes.
Doing well today, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, very well. Thank you.